first Friday of 2026 of the League of Women Voters of the Red River Valley. We are so glad you're here and so delighted that you have chosen to participate in your civic responsibilities and show up for events like this, because that's what democracy is all about. So thank you. And in fact, if you are joining us today and are not a league member, there's some information that we would urge you to pick up. On each table, there's some cards like this that tell you all about how to become a league member, and we hope you do. There's never been a more important time. And there's also, this card tells you how to do things online. This is just the good old-fashioned, fill this out and give us a check. So there's two ways of doing it if you're joining us. We do First Fridays, obviously it's the first Friday of every month. This one is a little different because of the holiday, but we'll be back with you on the first Friday in February. And that particular topic is going to be about the initiated measures that are coming on the North Dakota ballot. And now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speakers today. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about each of them, and then they can decide who gets to go first. Amy Jacobson is the Executive Director of Prairie Action, North Dakota, where she creates and executes high-impact media and communication strategies that drive progressive change and lift up diverse voices in North Dakota. Amy's background in issue-based communications work is rooted in state-level advocacy campaigns. Over the course of her 20-year career, she has focused on public policies that impact equality and equity in North Dakota, including access to affordable housing, child care, health care, reproductive rights, and human rights. Amy was recognized as Distinguished Alumni in 2015. And in 2016, she was honored with the YWCA of Cass Clay Woman of the Year Award for her work advocating for North Dakota women and families. Sydney Stock. Sydney is the Digital Communications Organizer at Prairie Action, North Dakota, where she's leading the change on North Dakota Megaphone, a new grassroots project helping everyday North Dakotans share powerful messages in their own voices. The effort is part of a national collaboration with Progress Now and other state-based partners, and she's working to train and grow a network of volunteers who are ready to speak out online in their communities and beyond. She graduated from Concordia College in 2021 with a focus on environmental sustainability, philosophy, and communications. What a wonderful combination. Since then, she's worked in civic engagement, prairie restoration, and basic needs student support, always rooted in a drive to build stronger communities and create meaningful change. Let's give a Laura War. Welcome.
Also, my phone in front of me because I sometimes I'm so excited to be here today and talking with all of you at the League. I've been a League member for many years, and decades ago, I guess now, 2 decades ago, I was on the board, so that was a long time ago. That was the first time that's been my even advocacy work in North Dakota. I really feel very deeply connected to the 100-year tradition of the League of Women Voters, of civic engagement and protection of our democracy, and I hold in very high regard all of you who worked on the board and done this work for many years in the state of North Dakota. I know that it has really, laid the path forward for the work that so many of us have done now and will do into the future. So I thank the League for all those years of work here in North Dakota and across the country. Like Lynn said, my name is Amy Jacobson. I'm the Executive Director at Prairie Action, North Dakota. We are what we call a digital advocacy organization rooted in progressive values. We are a North Dakota-based organization and I've been there for about 6 years now, and actually that's about the length of the organization. So in comparison to like the League, we're just a seedling organization, but we've been able to really connect with people across all kinds of issues and be able to grow and make some pretty significant significant changes in North Dakota because we believe, like Paul Wellstone said, when we all do better, we all do better. And that's really part of the mantra of our work is working in coalition to make a better North Dakota. So, just really quickly before we go on, you should know we're this massive team of 3. It's actually 2.5. So it's myself and Sydney, and then we also have a woman who serves as our reproductive rights fellow. Her name's Danielle, and she does all of our reproductive rights work, which I'll talk about in a little bit later. We're basically all work from home, so we're based wherever we live, but we happen to live in Fargo. This is Prairie Action. Our mission is to advance social and economic justice through strategic communication, digital advocacy. And there's digital advocacy and the amplification of our shared values. So we know how important it is to talk to each other, to connect with each other, and then to amplify each other's work in order to be stronger and have a stronger progressive, we call progressive, or really just value-aligned movement in North Dakota. So we lead efforts to shape our public discourse through that communication and engage communities both in Fargo, but across the entire state of North Dakota to influence the public policy, whether it's happening in our cities or at our state legislature or federally, and to build a stronger, more equitable North Dakota because we have a long way to go. And now, I know, I'm trying to stay, I know it's really, and I should, pause to say, I know that we are in incredibly difficult times right now, and sometimes that we can really form our community and think about what we need to do together to fight back on some of the atrocities that are happening across our country. So thank you all for making time to be here today and to build together to fight back because of sexism and all the isms that are really awful right now. So I should pause to say, I won't start crying because it is such a terrible time right now, but I understand if you do. So this is just a fun first slide. At the end of 2025, Sydney, our digital expert, did a very fun campaign online that kind of embraced this, every year that Pantone does the color of the year and there's a little splash and all this stuff. So we just kind of rode that wave and we talked about, the mission and the work of North Dakota, of Prairie Action in North Dakota, and gave it its own colors and its Pantone color, and we kind of created an online campaign. But it just kind of highlights a little bit what we'll walk through today of the mission and the values of North Dakota. Or Prairie Action, which I guess I'm just saying North Dakota today because we're moving in that direction. But we embrace economic justice, we embrace and work for working families, reproductive justice, so we call social justice. We also are very involved in civic engagement. The first thing that I'll talk a little bit about today is our pillar, I'll call it, of economic justice. 6 years we've done that in myriad of ways, and while I should say not all have been successful, I would say success lies in the connections that we make with each other and the roads that we make towards these changes, because we are in an incredibly difficult environment at our state capitol in which those who are currently serving do not necessarily reflect the values of all the people of North Dakota. And so it's kind of a long road connecting with all those people to see beyond the labels of R&D and come together on value-aligned issues, but we are making significant progress, and I'm really excited to talk about one of those things here in just a minute. But over the course of the years, we've done a lot of things like working to try to get paid family leave in North Dakota. We know that that's important for families to be able to take time when they have a child, adopt a child, or taking care of a sick or dying loved one. We were not successful in that, but we have brought it forward a couple of times at the legislature, working really closely to bring individual families to tell their stories. And I think there's probably more to be, there's definitely more to be done there. I'm not right at this moment in time, but we've also talked a lot about other impacts that impact working families, from SNAP benefit cuts to birth control coverage. We worked on an issue to ensure that our local city employees got birth control coverage to their health care plan and was successful on fighting for that at the city level. And also, but right now, our main issue, and that what we are leading the coalition on, is the Together for School Meals ballot measure for free school meals for every student in North Dakota. I'm excited. Yeah. Thank you. I will say I have the very first petition that's in circulation with me today. And we have this lovely table right here. We're the very first signers of that petition. I'll be here afterwards so I can stand if you want to sign that petition. What we're doing is working with a very broad group of people across the political divide, across the state, across economic levels, who believe that our kids should be fed for free or funded, if you need to use a different word, while they're at school. Our state constitution is where we have delineated that we have a public school system, and so we are moving to include within the state constitution this right to free school meals, and it is something that is wildly popular with people and at school. Period. And yes. Well-nourished children they learn better, they behave better, they are more productive. And we don't expect, parents, and it is about bringing people together on shared values to work for something that's better for the people of North Dakota, period. So super excited to be able to do that. Some of the other things that we've also worked on, and maybe will come again in the future, are supporting affordable housing. The rent help program was a disaster when it was being implemented, and we pushed back and tried to help make sure that people got the rent help that they needed in order to be able to pay their rent and not be evicted during COVID. We've also worked on issues like a child care workforce fund, which would allocate dollars from the state to supplement the wages of our child care workforce because they are significantly underpaid and doing very important work. We'll continue to try to keep those policies in front and center because when we're talking about issues and policies, we're talking about people. Okay. The second pillar of the work that we do is civic engagement, and it takes all shapes and forms. We believe that people-powered democracy means that all North Dakotans have the tools, protections, and opportunities to participate in meaningfully shaping their laws and electing people to office. And so we do work on voter education programs, and those are very just general sort of the dates, the times, the locations, how you vote, what you need, a lot like what the League does. We partner often with Whitney and other people from the League on sharing information that way. Additionally, we've also been called to the defense when people have been turned away at the voting booth as to be able to audit that and to report back. There was a time when new Americans were being turned away because they were being asked for their passport or their visa, in which they did not need. And then additionally, the civic engagement area, the photo that we used for our photo of the year was actually an invitation here from the League of Women Voters to participate in a press conference. That press conference was calling upon our federal delegation, and specifically, I believe, Julie Fedorchuk at that time, to hold in-person town halls. Good shot. I mean, she still hasn't done it. But it was important that the public hear from everyday people about the importance of our elected individuals sitting down eye to eye, not through a screen, and listening to our concerns, especially as the federal administration was slashing programs that people depend on for their livelihood. So we will continue to do all the things that we need to do to hold people accountable, especially electeds, and that is a purely civic engagement tactic. One of our other important pillars that we often talk about is protecting human rights. We work in coalition with other advocacy organizations and oftentimes are leading the work in specific areas. When we're talking about protecting human rights, that means ensuring that every North Dakotan can live safely, that they have fairness and access to accurate information that empowers and informs their choices. When we are specifically thinking about this, we are often talking about access to reproductive rights, which we know in North Dakota we are under an abortion ban that could be devastating for the health and future of many people in North Dakota. One of the things that we're doing to fight back against that, and have always fought back against that at the legislature, is that we have a program that we call SAS, that is self-managed abortion care. And it is just an information session, so we're, the freedom of speech is a protected information. We're sharing information from the World Health Organization about what a medication abortion is, what you experience when you take the medication abortion pills, and how you can access them. And Danielle and Sydney, who we saw earlier, and Sydney, they lead those information sharings, and it's kind of like that old school, back to the basics, one-on-one, small coffees, talking about how people can get information to protect their health. There's a whole host of things that go along with the reproductive rights pillar, and I'd be happy to talk about it all day long, but I know we're in a moment in time. But we also do partner with the North Dakota Human Rights Coalition and the ACLU and all of those good groups who are also who are doing similar work, because we're a small but mighty crew, to do things to protect our LGBTQ youth and people in general. And just making sure that people have the space to feel welcome and know that there are people in North Dakota that support, welcome, and cherish them. One of our favorite things to do, and what is the most important thing in movement building, is engaging with people in the way that public policy impacts their personal lives. And oftentimes, maybe I haven't, but Prairie Action is often behind the scenes. Sometimes people don't know that the work is being done, because we really do see ourselves as a support mechanism that can provide tools and resources and expertise to help you build your brand, your message, your campaign. As long as we're value aligned, we often do that. And so we're often lifting up others' work. Policy personal means centering those who are directly impacted. So when we're talking about school meals, we're talking about parents, we're talking about families, we're talking about children, being involved. But we also want to make sure that those people get a stage to share that information. So one of the programs that we have, and typically we run it mostly just during the legislative session, is a monthly online digital event. It's a community where we have a program called Amplifying North Dakota. So every Saturday morning at 10, we'd hop online with a program that would highlight, one of the major things that was happening at the state legislature and how it was impacting people. And we would bring policy experts. So let's say it was an attempt to institute vouchers that would take public dollars from public schools and could really harm our rural communities who would not have access to quality education after that fact. So when we had an event like that, we would invite in experts, so people like North Dakota United, but also families and rural farmers even, who would talk about the devastating impact of something like this. The goal of administration, things started getting really bad for the attacks that were happening on the programs that people relied on to have happy, healthy lives, have food and housing. We developed what we call the On the Ground report, and that is produced digitally, so you only find Action ND or our Instagram account as well. And what we do there is every week, which we actually thought was going to be a huge lift to be able to find information every week to do. Unfortunately, has not. We've had to pick and choose. I know. But what we attempt to do is take what is happening at the national level and show how it impacts people in North Dakota. It's just like a 4 or 5 slides that breaks down that information and also provides the resources in which the legitimate media sources in which we found that information. So I would love for you to go back and take a look at that. We've put a lot of time and effort into that. I think today's post is going to be the next one that's going up is so on the ground. This week is going to be about Venezuela. So take a look and so
it's
that
on our website too.
Oh, yeah, on the website too. So centering people that are directly impacted, and then amplifying that work. And then, I think this is our final pillar, is defending freedom and democracy. So defending freedom and strengthening democracy means ensuring that every North Dakotan has the rights, the tools, and protections to fully participate. We want to be able to hold our leaders accountable and to have our voices heard. So there's protecting the civic engagement or the civic process. So, and I think Lynn, you mentioned later you'll be talking about initiated measures that will be on the ballot in 2026. I think this is really important for us to be paying attention to and organizing around. Prairie Action will be part of a group of don't always take that issue up. They don't necessarily bring that policy forward. Sometimes it just completely falls on deaf ears. They defeat it, right? So we have this protected right to be able to make our lives better in North Dakota. I think a key, what we'll be looking at with the school meals, that's a perfect evolution of how we use the ballot measure process and why we should protect it. People got together and wanted free school meals for all our kids 2 sessions ago. maybe there were attempts even before that. Defeated at the state legislature. We did it again. Massive community support. Huge pressure on them to do that. We saw a couple more bills, a couple more people decide that they were wanting to champion this effort. Defeated that bill. Now, mind you, this was not even 12 months ago. Like, we're in like the same calendar year as that being defeated. So the same group of people who've been working on that for all of that time said, we have tried this process and it is not working. But 80% of the people in North Dakota repeatedly on polls are saying we want free school meals. So we decided we would initiate a ballot measure. It is going to be constitutional ballot measure so that it is protected just like in the same space that the development of our public school system is. And then, as I mentioned, we give the legislature the ability to define where those funds go, and if they can't find it, it will depend on the legacy funds. You know, we'll see what happens with that. We are very excited to have it in front of people. We do believe we will win. But when people don't like what the citizens are initiated and maybe want the policy to look different, even if they haven't passed it before, or don't think that is probably the right path, and sometimes that is true. Sometimes we don't get it right. But we've got this one right, for sure. We see attempts to limit our access to the ballot measure so that we cannot put policy forward that we think is good for the people. And so we'll see that twice this year, and this is why it's so important. In June, there's going to be an attempt to make it so it can only be our measures can only be a single subject. On the blush, that sounds great. When you think about how policy is implemented, it is disastrous. There is no definition around what single subject means. Does that mean if we say school breakfast and we say school lunch, could those be two things? Or if we say, you know, if there's there's a different topic, you know, things get complicated when you're trying to, you know, make good policy. So there's no definition around what a single subject is, and it's really left up to the discretion of the Secretary of State. So an elected individual, be that person awesome or not awesome, it's a lot for one person to have on their plate with no definitions around how to implement that. So we will be actively opposing that measure. We think it's important that we defeat it, or we will have a difficulty in the future doing things that that people maybe just don't want us to be doing because they find reasons to keep you off the ballot. And we could talk about that all day as well. But the second one's even more important to that, and that's in November. And I just want to let everybody know about that one. You're probably fully aware, but both of these measures come from the legislature and have to be voted things the legislature wants. And the second one is that in order for us to pass the ballot measure, a constitutional one, voters have to pass it by 60% threshold. So a super majority of voters, a minority of voters, actually get to determine if this becomes state in 2026. And so before I close, and I'm going to turn it over to Sydney to talk more about the programming that we have that you can participate in. And this was just a sliver of some of the work that we do. We're really privileged to have really great colleagues across the state who do really important work when we're talking about public education, housing security, LGBTQ rights, reproductive rights, criminal justice reform, hunger, all of those great things we work together in, but we do truly believe that together we can create and that a collective impact is the way that we do it. So the more people that we can talk to and get to know each other and be humans with and connect with on a value base and no longer have this polarizing things that she puts in front of you that help to amplify these messages are simple. They're things that our opposition do all of the time, and it's time that we engage online in a way that shows our values and shows how we're connected to other North Dakotans with those values. So that we can win in the future. And so with that, I will bring up Sydney Stock, our digital communication officer.
Hello, everyone. Another presentation for you. So thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for hosting this conversation today. Thank you, Amy, for grounding us in Prairie Action's work, values, and our priorities. Like Amy said, like Lynn said, my name is Sydney Stock. I am our digital communications organizer here at Prairie Action, one of our three tiny but mighty employees. My role this afternoon is a little bit different from what you just heard from Amy. I want to spend some time talking about how information actually moves in our communities, how people learn about what's happening, who they feel that they can trust, and how that influences civic participation in North Dakota. Although I'm our digital communications organizer, this isn't really a talk about technology. It's a talk about trust, understanding, and how democracy functions in everyday life, especially during moments of rapid change, which we have been seeing a lot, especially for the last year. So, let's go right ahead and get started. I want to start by being honest about something. Many of us are skeptical about social media, even those of us who are using it every day, and that's for a good reason. But whether we enjoy it or not, social media has become a part of our civic landscape. It's where many people encounter information before they see a newspaper article, before they attend a forum or read a voter guide, or come here to an event like this on a First Friday. But it's also a space where misinformation, disinformation, and hatefulness can spread super quickly when that good and truthful information isn't present. I think it's safe to say that ignoring social media doesn't really make it disappear, doesn't solve the problem, it just leaves a really big gap. And when there's a gap, something else is going to fill it. So that brings me to something that's really important. People don't necessarily trust institutions or organizations first. They're going to trust the people that they know and talk to every day. So they're going to trust their family members, their friends, neighbors, people that they've had actual conversations like this with. And when you share something, whether that's online or by email, in a conversation, you're not saying this is the final word, you're just saying like this is something to pay attention to. And this is where I want to be clear that the amount of followers or the amount of friends that you have on your Facebook, on your Instagram, wherever you find yourself online, that doesn't really matter. But what matters is the trust that you're building in those spaces. You are more trusted than Prairie Action, than the League of Women Voters, you're more trusted than the news, you're more trusted than any headline, and you all, as individuals, are the most trusted source of information for the people around you. So with that understanding of trust is why organizations like ourselves, Prairie Action, that's why we take our digital presence pretty seriously. Our goal online, and it's not about rage baiting or creating an outrage, it's just about making things clear and providing clarity. We focus on accurate, sourced information, which is North Dakota specific, that helps people understand what's happening without overwhelming them. We see this as a form of civic responsibility, supporting informed participation so people can make sense of what's going on and stay engaged in ways that work for them. When information moves really fast, without context, people don't really engage with those messages, they don't really care as much, and folks disengage because they're confused. And confusion is super dangerous for democracy, not really because people are apathetic, but because uncertainty makes participation feel like so that gap between the headlines and real life is why we here at Prairie Action created On the Ground. It's a weekly series designed to really slow things down, break things down into more accessible tidbits. We make federal and state decisions, or we take those federal and state decisions and explain what they actually mean and how they affect North Dakotans in practical and concrete ways. So just a few different examples of federal Medicaid cuts or driving deep cuts to autism care that was more recent, like what the government shutdown actually meant for North Dakotans earlier on in the year, talks of like a $2 trillion cut in Medicaid, breaking down, what demographics specifically in North Dakota that would affect. But these on-the-ground reports, they are intentionally calm. It's sourced information, it's local, and it's written for people who want to understand without being too overwhelmed. Because things change really quickly, and it's hard to keep up sometimes. Why on the ground really matters right now. This kind of translation work matters more now than ever. Understanding does lead to conversations. Once people understand what's happening, the next question they often ask is like, how do I talk about this? Where do we go from here? Now I finally understand, well, what can I do about it? And there's not a single right answer. Some people want to share information online. Some people are just interested in forwarding an email. Some people use language in conversations with friends or family, and some people, they just want to stay informed. They don't necessarily want to do anything about it, but they just want to know what's going on. And all of those are valid, and all of those definitely count for something. But that is where Prairie Action, the North Dakota Megaphone program comes in. North Dakota Megaphone, people who care about their communities and want to stay informed. And they don't all post every week. A lot of them just read my emails, some share once in a while, and some just use that information as conversation starters in their circles and every day. So we would really, really love for you to be a part of that group in whatever way it feels right to you. This is a personal project of mine that I've been working on for a couple years, so this means a lot to me. Even if you guys are just listening in, you know, don't actually do anything today. So, what Megaphone actually is, I want to be clear about what it is and what it isn't. It's not like a social media, it's not like a Facebook feed, or like a TikTok page. It's not super loud or overwhelming. It's more like a small bulletin board or a little library, a simple list of ready-to-use images paired with messages or captions. There's no comments, no arguing, no pressure. You don't have to get in an argument with someone on there. You can just open it and read something and close it if you want. You can share it if you want. Nothing has to happen unless you choose to. So, how Megaphone works, after you sign up, I personally will send you a welcome email. It is a closed account, so not just anyone can make an account. You do have to sign up, and that makes it so that it's, you know, trusted folks, real people, not just bots or anything like that in North Dakota who have access to this information. So then I'll register you for an account myself. The only thing you have to do on your end is you just choose a password just like you would for anything else. You can log in and browse if you want, or you can just read the weekly Megaphone mails that I send on Mondays and share messages if you'd like. And I want to say this very clearly, nothing will ever post without your permission, so you don't have to worry about it. So I will show you, I'm just going to show you what it actually looks like, walk through this for those of you that are interested. So to sign up for the program, you'll go to our website, and this is also just a plug for our website. We have news, and looks like, so this is our personal North Dakota Megaphone. So every week I go in and I upload images with messages. So this last week, posted some relevant, you can see the date when they're posted in here. And they're all, you know, some are more national, some are more specifically related to North Dakota. Winter doesn't wait for housing to catch up. An endless variety of topics that you could choose from. Like Amy talked about, stable childcare. So this is how easy it is to post from here. So we're gonna do a share our post.